Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the FeiyuTech AK4000. This gimbal launched at the end of 2018 and is priced at roughly $600 US. Feiyu did furnish me with this product for review, and I do actually own the A2000, the previous generation. I did purchase that, as well as the DJI Ronin-s, so that will be or shape my basis for comparison for those of you that are wondering. With that out of the way, let's take a look at the paperwork. I did already remove the carry case inside of the retail box. We've got a little bit of paperwork here, which essentially just outlines basically how to actually get around vibration when using the gimbal. That's what I'm seeing right here. And then we have an envelope, which, if it's similar to my A2000, basically welcomes you to the product. So we've got a quick start guide as well as our warranty. Let's go ahead and put that aside. And for those of you wondering why you would go over to a product like this as opposed to something like the Ronin-s, well, it's really because Feiyu has paid attention to what DJI has done correctly, and they've come up with a gimbal that weighs less than the Ronin-s, and in theory, at least on paper, from what I read, has a higher capacity on the payload side. So the Feiyu AK4000 weighs less than the Ronin, but has a maximum capacity payload of 8.8 pounds, and that's actually nearly a pound more than the Ronin-s. So lighter and able to carry a heavier payload. Another thing you may have noticed already is that we have a touchscreen right here on the actual gimbal itself, something you won't find with the DJI Ronin-s. And that's another nice thing because that means you aren't really going to ever need to look at an application in order to use this. Now, from what I've read, you will need to dive into the menus and possibly use the app in order to deal with your payload capacity, things of that nature. But again, the idea is not needing a smartphone in order to really get full leverage of this device. So first I'll start off with an included metal tripod that is able to be mounted to the base of this. Madewell, FeiyuTech branding right there, something I did not see with the previous generation. Same exact charging system, it appears. So we just basically plug this in, and we've got 4 batteries. In terms of battery life, Feiyu is claiming around 12 hours. I would expect something around 10. That's realistic. And then we have a mounting plate that has been, I would say, not radically changed, but definitely changed from the previous generation. They now have a bump up, and that's really there in order to deal with the heavier payload capacity that the new AK4000 can deal with. Now, also bear in mind that you may have noticed on the paperwork over there that there's also an AK2000. So if you don't need this 8.8 payload capacity, you can go ahead and purchase that one, which is going to give you, first of all, a lower price point, but more importantly, it can't deal with this payload, but it comes in at a significant discount to the $600 US that you'll be paying for this. And if you don't need the 8.8 pounds in terms of capacity, why purchase it? It's all about what gear you're going to actually be using. So here we have what appears to be some fittings, and you do still need to balance this like any other gimbal. I'm not sure what this piece is. Of course, this is to hook up for, I think, communication. It may be tied to the charger. Let me just see if there is a... Yep, no, it is for charging, because there is a micro USB port there on the side of the charger. So I'm not sure what this is, but of course I will do a follow-up on this for those of you that are wondering. We have what you're going to be attaching to basically brace the lens. This is not a new piece. This is something from previous generations as well. We've got an extension that they've also included so that in the event you want to actually extend this gimbal, you can. I will be attaching that, so don't worry. Let's see what this is in this box right here. It appears to be... Oh, so this is going to be your communication cable, depending on what camera you're using. So hopefully, this will have fairly solid, I hope, communication with my Sony cameras. That's something I don't really have with the Ronin-s. That was a disappointment because DJI even went out of their way to advertise, the Sony brand on their gimbals, and meanwhile, it's not optimized for them. So we'll see how this does in terms of communication with my Sony. Another part, I believe, of the mounting system, but that's, again, something I will have to look into. And then let's get to the gimbal itself. So Very similar design to the AK2000, but things they fixed and they needed to fix without any hesitation was we no longer have a gimbal that is blocked by its own motor in terms of being able to see the rear view screen. So that's already a big improvement. So again, taking from the Ronin-s, in my opinion, and much of the competition and just building upon it. Now, when we get to the actual control that I'm trying to bring into focus here, this is a touch screen and it does give you quite a few options. You also have a control dial here, which is another nice added feature, something that DJI brought to the table and pretty much everyone emulated. The dial for controlling the gimbal seems to be somewhat improved from the previous, A2000 that I own. And then we have some dedicated buttons for power, as well as, still versus video mode. Just, again, shortcuts. But the battery system being the same, I can see right here we've got the mount point for that extension, which I'm going to show you what that looks like actually on the gimbal right now. It appears to be carbon fiber, very lightweight. Of course, I did not install the batteries. You all just saw the batteries there. And from what I've read, unfortunately, the dual handle grip that I have from the A2000 is not going to be compatible with this, but they did include this. They do have a dual handle grip, but it's more of the old generation Ronin type that wraps entirely around, giving you a cage, basically, in a sense, in terms of grip, which isn't bad, but I wish they would have allowed or just pushed a firmware update out to allow for compatibility with the previous gen dual handle, since I have it here, and it would be nice for run and gun shooting. But with that said, I don't see myself using this attachment that much, but it does give you extra length if you need it, so I think it was nice of them to include that. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything. Let me see. This looks like it was just another spot, unless something was supposed to be there and Feiyu decided to not include it. But again, this is the gimbal. I mean, overall, it is, again, lighter than the Ronin-s, but we have something that can handle a higher payload capacity. And of course, there's a trigger here for those of you that are wondering. That is not something they had. Well, excuse me, they had it on the A2000, but it's not something that you would necessarily expect, again, on a more budget-friendly gimbal, in my opinion. We've got the USB port right there, as well as, I'm not sure if that's the power button right there. So that pretty much rounds things out. And I'm just excited to use it, start shooting with it, and see how it performs. Again, this is the Feiyu AK4000, really building off of their previous generation in just about every way by giving us a touch screen, a control dial, and obviously a higher payload capacity without changing the weight too much, and then fixing the orientation of the motors in relation to the screen. I mean, that was a critical one. As much as I liked my A2000, not being able to see my screen on camera was a bit of a buzzkill. Here, you have that capability, and then, great battery life, I expect, because the A2000 had it, and the higher payload capacity is a welcomed addition. I don't think this is going to be my carrying case, though. That's another thing I will mention. The A2000 came with a very nice, I would say, appropriate case for travel. This looks a lot like what DJI packages the Ronin-s in, which is okay, but really not ideal for taking anywhere because it's not that stable. I mean, it is made of styrofoam. But that pretty much rounds things out. Nothing else in the box. Excited to pop the batteries in and play with this and give all of you feedback. And hopefully this lives up to my expectation, because at 100 less than the Ronin-s, or more than 100 less, excuse me, you are getting something value-driven, but also that offers you things you will not get with the Ronin-s. So I especially like the fact that we do have, replaceable batteries. Nothing's built in here. It basically has the best, in my opinion, of all of the feature sets, at least on paper, and payload capacity of any gimbal on the market. So it's going to be very interesting putting this thing through the paces. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.